Welcome to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger. Badass Direct Sales Mastery is a podcast for rock star direct sales moms who are determined to make their business kick ass. Jenny will share her knowledge of effective sales and recruiting techniques, tips to get what you want from your business, and will interview direct sales professionals and leaders from various companies. The interviews will give insight to how these rock stars got to where they are and where they plan to grow in the future. And now, the direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger.
And welcome back to another episode of the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast. I am your direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger, and I am here today with a woman who I literally met like 3 days ago for the very first time. And in 5 seconds, I knew exactly what she did. That's how good she is at explaining what she does. And that's why I had to have her on the podcast. Because as we were talking, she was able to say, I teach people how to do this all the time. And I thought, got to get Kimberly on the show. So this is Kimberly Hobscheid. She is a joint venture super connector, and she gets entrepreneurs on the stages and connections they need in order to stop being overlooked and explosively grow their revenue and their reach. She's an award-winning international inspirational public speaker, best-selling author, audiobook producer, and 6-time entrepreneur. Kimberly is the creator of the Entrepreneur's Rocket Fuel, an active community of entrepreneurs looking to contribute, connect, and grow with other entrepreneurs. Kimberly is also the mother of 2 and an adventure seeker. She's hiked sections of the Pacific Crest Trail, navigated Class 4 rapids with one of Costa Rica's female Olympic medal-winning whitewater champions, sailed down the coast of Mexico in a 42-foot Yankee Clipper, and traversed 200 miles on horseback through Canada's Jasper National Park. Her motto is live life out loud. Kimberly has been a guest speaker in cities worldwide, inspiring people to get where they want to go. And her specialty is turning dreams into reality. Well, welcome to the show, Kimberly.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much, Jenny. I'm really excited to meet your crew.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And just so everybody knows, okay, what we're going to do is we're not going to make you wait until the end for Kimberly's giveaway because it's so good. We want to tell you about it now in the beginning. And then that way you can go print it out, go download it, print it out, and fill it out while you're listening to what Kimberly has to say. So what you guys are going to do is you are going to go to entrepreneursrocketfuel.com/gift/20-word intro. Did I get that right?
That's correct. And it's 20, the number 20-word intro. That's correct.
Absolutely. So guys, go pause the episode, go look in the show notes, click the link, and download it right away so that way you can take a look at it while we're talking about this, because she's going to teach you how to introduce yourself as quickly and effectively and concisely as she did. So, but before we get into that, while people are printing everything out and getting that ready, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world?
Absolutely. So thank you. I love being a joint venture super connector. And what that is it's a person who gets people on stages and in front of the right people and the right opportunities in order to grow their business to the next level and really explosively grow their revenue and their reach. I really love what I do, and it hasn't always been this way, but right now I'm in a space where I'm really, really enjoying my entrepreneurship. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs go into business and they do what they're good at, and they're like, I was always good at this, and so I guess I'm going to do that. And they get into it, and if you're at all like me, I was in that business for 17 years, and I got out of corporate, and then I went right back into it as an entrepreneur. And about a year later, I had employees, I had a 7-figure business, and I was super unhappy. And I thought, what did I do wrong? Right? And yeah. And when I turned around, I realized I was doing what I was good at, but that didn't mean that was what was fun. That was what was joyful. That was what I was meant to do. And I really enjoyed working with entrepreneurs and helping them get to the next level. I know a lot of people have coaching programs where they coach for a year, or they have mastermind programs. I actually don't really even do any of that. My job in the world right now is to connect people to other people and opportunities, and really really stages to get the word out about who they are and what they do. I'm a firm believer that if you are not being seen, you're being overlooked. And we've got to stop that happening to our entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if there is one category of business owners who feel overlooked many times, I'd have to say that probably really fits many people in the direct sales realm, because they feel like it's not just overlooked sometimes, but sometimes looked down upon, right?
Absolutely. So I think when you told me that you work with rockstar direct sales moms, I thought this is perfect because I'm a mom myself. I have had direct sales businesses, and I know what it's like to come into a room and people say, so what do you do? And you have like this hesitation for thinking like, what am I going to tell them that I do? How am I going to position this correctly? And I've found that direct sales people, and as well as many other people, when they introduce themselves, they come up with one of three really terrible answers. And so I came up with this solution of this magic formula of how to introduce yourself. And it seems to really, really resonate with people. So would you like me to share with you what the three mistakes usually are?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you started to bring it up. So I'm like, oh, we got to know what the mistakes are, so we stop doing them.
Exactly. So the first one is people will answer, so what do you do? With, well, I do a lot of things. And the reason that they say that is because they don't want to be pigeonholed into one or another, or they do a lot of things, but it really doesn't advance the conversation anywhere further.
Mm-hmm.
The second way that they answer that is they say things that are nebulous because they want people to ask them more questions. So that sounds something like, well, I help people achieve their dreams, or I help people get out of stuck situations and get into happiness. And oftentimes you'll find direct salespeople using that kind of language because they're hoping to sort of fish hook on people to be able to like ask me more so that I can download, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is actually that download, that prepared 2-minute speech that unloads everything about everything as quickly as possible onto somebody who just really wanted to know your first name.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can't even tell you how often that happens. I mean,
Yeah.
even when you're in the direct sales world, to have that introduction when you're out at an event and you're like, oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell me before you even know what I want or need.
Exactly. And so I came up with this magic formula, and it's actually based on brain science, and it's based on human nature as well. It's like what we can only process about 17 words at a time. So we're going to give you 20, and that's it. That's all you can have in your first little intro. And we're going to use those 20 to answer the first 4 questions that people want to know, all inside 20 words. So the first thing you want to know when you introduce yourself to somebody, or you're asking them to introduce themselves, the very first thing you want to know is their name, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would even encourage you not to use your words to say your first and last name. Just say your first name, because if your last name is complicated like mine, my last name is Hobscheid, people will get stuck on that word and they won't really know like where to go with it, or they'll forget it, or they're worried that they're going to forget it. So I just use my first 2 words to say, I'm Kimberly. And it's really nice and straightforward, right? I'm Jenny. And that's fine. That's all they need to know. Your last name can certainly come on a business card later, or in a follow-up email, or even if they ask, you can certainly tell them. But your first 2 words should be, you're introducing yourself with your first name. So I'm Kimberly. I have a little mini business that sells audiobooks. So I thought I'd use that because it's kind of a fun little business to talk about.
Sure.
And we'll use that as my example. So the second thing that you want to know when you're talking to somebody is whether or not they can help you. So the first thing that you say is, I'm Kimberly, but now you want to talk about who you help. Now that is not 15 words of who you help. You're not helping young women between the ages of 15 and 23 that have trouble hiding their diaries from their brothers and want to be sure that they have a good life in their 30s. That's not who you're helping. You're helping teen girls, right? Or you're helping something nice and short that people can understand very quickly. So you get about 2 to 3 words to say who you help. And in my case for audiobooks, I help published authors. So by saying I help published authors as my next few words, we're going to get right to the meat of who it is that I help, because that's what your brain really wants to know. The next thing they want to know is whether or not what their prize is for working with you. So if I'm an author, if I'm a published author and I start working with you, what am I going to get out of it? Well, you could say you're going to get an audiobook, but authors really don't care about audiobooks. Authors really like to read books. They like paper books. They like to curl up with them. They like to smell them and play with them. And they like the pages when they sound, how they sound when they turn. So authors really don't care about audiobooks. But you know what they do care about? Authors care about getting a wider reach. Authors care about getting a bigger audience. Authors care about making more money from a book they already created. So those are the kinds of things I talk about next. So I'll say, I help authors get new streams of revenue and a wider audience.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now they're sort of leaning in. They're like, all right, I know your name is Kimberly. I know you help authors get a wider audience and more streams of revenue. So now I'm leaning in. But the next question is, what are you going to do to me? Right? So if I say, I'm Kimberly and I help new moms get into the jeans they were in before they got pregnant, the next question is, oh my gosh, what are you going to do to me? Are you going to starve me to death? Are you going to make me eat weird food? Are you going to make me take a bunch of pills? What are you going to do to me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to answer that question right away. And this is really important if you're in direct sales. You don't want to beat around the bush. You actually want to say what you're selling. So if you're selling, for example, diet pills or something like that, or I actually have a friend who does this. He does direct sales and he sells coffee products, right? So he says, I'm David. I help new moms get back into the jeans they were in before they were pregnant by drinking a cup of coffee every day.
Wow.
Really straightforward, right? Really straightforward. It answers all 4 questions. What's your name? Can you help me? What do I get from working with you? And what are you going to do to me?
Yeah. No kidding.
Those are the 4 questions that people want to know. And so if you answer those questions very quickly, people will get it. And not only will they get it, but they'll be able to explain it to somebody else.
Exactly. And that's really the key in direct sales. It's network marketing. You've got to be able to have a word of mouth where people can spread the word about how awesome you are.
Right. Now imagine if that same direct salesperson who sold coffee would say something like, I help people lose weight, or I help people achieve their dreams, or I help people get healthy again. Then when the person walks away, they really don't know anything about coffee. They don't really know any way that they're going to get help. So they can't really refer them to somebody else. But if he says, I'm David, and I help new moms get back into the jeans they were in before they got pregnant by drinking a cup of coffee every day, that person might go to their table mates and say, this dude over here sells coffee that helps you lose weight. And even though they didn't state it in the same way, you know that they got it and you know they can pass it on. So for direct sales super rock star moms, this is really, really key. You have to really be clear, concise, and memorable in 20 words in order to have the word passed on about who you are and what you do.
I think it's brilliant. And now many of us have probably heard about, the elevator pitch. You have 1 floor, you have 3 floors, you have 10 floors to tell somebody what you do. How does your 20-word introduction compare to the stereotypical elevator pitch?
Well, that's a really good question. If you have an elevator pitch, first off, I'd suggest you don't start with it. An elevator pitch is really good after people have already started to lean in a little bit and they want to know more. If you understand brain science and you understand even just human nature, you know that if somebody's got a locked and loaded 2-minute elevator pitch that they're going to spew at you, you know that they're not going to take a breath and they're going to get as many words in there as possible. And you're kind of already leaning away from it. But if you do it in 20 words, you can really slow down and let people digest what they need to hear in the order that they need to hear it. So with my 20-word intro, it would be like this for audiobooks. I'm Kimberly. I help published authors get new streams of revenue and a wider audience by creating audiobooks. Now that's really small pieces to digest. and it's in the order that people want to digest them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're able to do that and they say, wow, tell me more, now you can get into that elevator pitch. But I'd encourage you to do it in smaller chunks. Elevator pitches are really designed for a trapped audience. And that's what people feel like when you give them an elevator pitch. They feel trapped.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really should be when especially if you're out networking, a conversation. Well, we are recording this in the time of shelter in place, even if you're not out networking, but you are networking over whether it's Skype or Zoom or any of the myriad of platforms. Again, you don't want to hold them captive with that, talking for 12 minutes about all the different nuances of your products and how they help. Right?
Absolutely. Not if it's just so what do you do? Now, if they say, okay, Jenny, I'd love to give you 2 minutes to tell us who you are and what you do. You can start with your 20-word intro and then go into some more detail because you have time left. But if somebody's just casually asking, so Jenny, what do you do? You don't necessarily want to download a 2-minute presentation on them that's fully prepared, that doesn't have any pauses in it or breaths.
Yeah, no kidding. Because you're afraid if you stop and breathe that they're going to jump in or walk away.
Or interrupt you or walk away. Or yes, absolutely.
Oh,
so sometimes direct salespeople do feel like I've got to get it all out as quickly as possible or I'm going to lose them. And the reverse is really the true.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. After, I've been in the networking world for about 9 years now. And, the more you converse, the more you get to know about the other person, the whole conversation just goes so much easier. And instead of just standing there and verbally vomiting every possible thing about your business, about the product, about your team, all that stuff, having a real human to human conversation and really getting to know them makes the whole conversation much easier because you can determine if they are somebody who fits within your tribe of potential clients. Because I don't care what you sell, not everybody is your client.
True. Oftentimes, you're really not talking to the people that you're talking to. You're talking to their sphere of influence. When I talk to a room, I'm not just talking to entrepreneurs. I'm not just talking to authors. I'm talking to people that may know entrepreneurs or authors, right? People who know people and they're like, oh my gosh, you've got to talk to this girl, Kimberly. I'll tell you that if we're talking about an introduction at a meetup or something like that, I have a really fun story that I was at a meetup and then I gave my 20-word intro exactly like this. And one of the guys that heard me was like, gosh, that's incredible. Audiobooks, that's so great. I love audiobooks. And then for the rest of the meeting, we did mixers, right? And I could hear him talking to other people about, oh, you got to go talk to this girl. She does audiobooks, which was super fun for me to hear. And then 6 months later, literally 6 months later, I got an email from this gentleman and he said, hey, Kimberly, are you still doing audiobooks? My brother just finished his book and I want to introduce you.
Nice.
If you can make an impression at a meetup group that lasts 6 months, you're doing something right.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much a dream for all of us that we can get a call from someone out of nowhere and say, hey, I'd like to send you a client.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, who's going to say no to that?
Exactly. It's hard being a rock star direct sales mom. It's hard getting yourself out there and operating outside your sphere of influence or even inside your sphere of influence and being that person who shows up in a really powerful way without bowling people over. And this methodology is a really cool way to be able to do that.
I definitely agree. So before we wrap up, I got to know, first of all, do you have any pro tips for us?
Oh, yeah. So a pro tip for me is to go ahead and at your next networking event, whether it's virtual or whether it's live, at your next networking event, try out your 20-word intro. Use the spreadsheet or use the PDF, figure out what you want to say, come up with your ideal 20-word intro, and then use it. and then asks the person if they would be willing to repeat back to you anything that they know about what you do. And if you're getting answers that aren't entirely accurate, go ahead and tweak that 20-word intro because you may be using language that other people don't understand. So even though you have perfected your 20-word intro, give yourself an opportunity to perfect it even more, because done is better than perfect, and perfect never is.
So true. And yeah, I do have to say that a lot of people do end up using a lot of the technical language from their industry, whatever that is. And the more technical language you use, the more likely you are to lose the attention of the other person that you're talking with.
And I'll
It's
tell
just so
you,
much harder.
It's human nature to nod along and pretend you understand even when you don't. And you probably know, the people that are listening probably think, oh, I've done that, right? Some doctor's talking about something and I'm like, I don't know what ornithology is. I have no idea what that is, right? But you're nodding along like you do and don't really realize it has nothing to do with that at all. And it's just one of those things where you don't really want to correct people. So people will not correct you because they you're thinking they understand when they don't really. So make sure that when you are using terminology, that you're using terminology that people understand. And it's okay if they don't. Just use fourth grade language, Don't use words like, osteopathy. Use words like, okay, I'm a bone doctor or something like that, right? It's okay to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to make sure that people really and truly get what you do and can share it with others, especially when they happen to stumble across the perfect person that you work with, like a published author. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So everybody, if you haven't already done so, make sure you go into the show notes and download that PDF that has the how to write your 20-word intro, because it literally just breaks it down one piece right after the other, and then practice it. It may even be good to share with your team and practice it with your team members, right? At your next event. So that way you guys can have that maybe tweaked a little bit before you go to your next networking event. And so, Kimberly, if people want to reach out to you and get to know more about what you do and see how you could potentially help connect them to someone, because you are a super connector, where would you like them to reach out to you?
Well, I'm really glad you asked. I actually built a community called Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel, and it's for direct salespeople and pretty much any entrepreneur who's growing their business. It's a community by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs to help entrepreneurs get their business to the next level. It's not necessarily someplace where you would sell directly, but it's definitely someplace where you would connect with other entrepreneurs and start sharing who you are and how you show up in the world so they can refer you to somebody else and refer your business out. So I would love for you to join the community and be part of the conversation.
That is fabulous. I think it's great. Anytime that there's a business person who welcomes direct salespeople, I'm always so excited because I can't even tell you how often we see groups on Facebook that are like, no MLMs, no network marketing, no direct sale. Like they're like anti direct sales business model, which is really unfortunate. So the fact that you welcome them with open arms, inviting them to come learn more about other businesses that could potentially help them, other entrepreneurs, because I've been a part of the group now for a few days, checking it out and seeing all the amazing things that people are doing to share and give information. And it's amazing how much great information is being shared there by other entrepreneurs who've been doing this for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Which is phenomenal. So thank you for creating that community and welcoming all of us into it.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, again, everybody, if you would like to reach out to Kimberly Hobscheid, you can find her on Facebook with the Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel Facebook group. The link will also be in the show notes and you can check that out. So thank you again, Kimberly, for being here.
My pleasure. I'm really delighted to have been on your show. I really like the way you show up in the world, Jenny. You are doing a great service for rockstar direct sales moms, and I'm super glad you're here.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, everybody. Well, that's the end of this episode, but get ready because there's another badass episode right on the way.
Thanks for listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger. Why are you waiting to go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com? Don't make the dom get her whip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with another rock star that you know in direct sales after you subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. You can also check out the show notes for links and any contact information mentioned in today's episode. We'll see you next time.